name is Daddy Kev. You're at my studio here in Eagle Rock. It's just newly built. This is a studio I'm building with Gaslamp Killer, and I do all my mastering here. We do some recording here as well, but it's mainly, for me, it's mainly my mastering studio that I use these days. I've been using Apogee products for a long time. I mean, I think the first thing I bought was the Mini-Me, I want to say, and I was using that with my old Digio 1 I used to use, old Pro Tools box, and then shortly after I got the Mini-Me, I got the Mini DAC, which is kind of a little companion piece, which I used then for a DA, which was great. As I started getting into more outboard gear, I needed more ins and outs, so the next piece I bought was the Rosetta 200, which was great. I used that for many years on many projects. A lot of warp stuff, and a lot of the Alpha Pup and Brain Feeder stuff was done on Rosetta 200, and I was using that with the Mini DAC in combination with the Digio 3 as the interface, and it was great using Pro Tools. And then with Pro Tools 9, I just wanted to step it up a whole nother level and not have to have all these different boxes. And that's when the Symphony started becoming really attractive. What I use it for is just the clock, obviously, sounds fantastic. The conversion itself, the converters for the ins and outs to go into my outboard is also, now I just don't worry about it. I just know that, I have the highest quality that you can have that's no longer, looked at as any sort of weak link. And in my new setup, I rethought the whole thing, and I just wanted it to be portable and easy, and for other people who want to work out of here to be easily just to plug into the whole stack and the monitors and everything. At this point, it's really just one USB cable. The first step is, honestly, I have to configure everything, so it's, just so that everything's happening in Pro Tools right, so I have it hitting the chain right. The second thing I do is, is probably, once I gain everything down, often I get, all the tracks I get are like super hot, like very little headroom if any. So the first thing I do is I turn everything down, I'd say, about 6 decibels. The next thing I do is EQ, my EQ I use, the whole chain goes through this Avitas EQ, which adds some 28K, which is a nice little thing. You can't get that in the box. But my main EQ, I prefer digital EQ, which is the Brainworks. It's definitely my favorite. But the Brainworks, I usually do very thin cues. That's all I do. And it's only subtractive, except when I do, there's like a bass shift where I'll kind of add bass sometimes. But I don't ever, with this, I never boost, ever, which I think is always a good guideline for using digital EQs, subtractive as much as possible. That said, when I do boost, sometimes I get material that just sounds awful, right? It's just way out there. It just, you can tell it's made on horrible monitors, and I have to do some real sculpting to kind of bring it back to any sort of point of quality. And that's when boosts are required. But when I do boost, I only do wide. I will, for mastering, I never boost thin Q. It's always almost as wide as possible. And I kind of do more of a sculpt, and that's what I'll use the Sonaxis for, is to do those really wide Q boosts. And it's something about it, it's really flattering with this particular EQ that I've noticed for mastering. So the process is that. So then I get my EQ set. I usually do all that. I EQ everything before even putting any limiting on it. I'll do that with the limiter off, with plenty of headroom, and then at the very kind of end, I'll smack the limiter on. And my favorite is the Oxford. It's a lot of people's favorites. But the Oxford has just some really nice features to it, I want to say. You can really detail the attack and release settings. It has this enhance section, which is cool, and then allows you to set the output levels at very precise output gain statements. So it's and these days I like to be a little bit under 0. I used to cut at 0 all the time, and I realized there's certain DAs that can't take a 0 cut, so I've
bring it down just a little bit now. You know, it depends how much it is. The point I like now is like exactly negative 0.02. You know, just a little bit off, just literally 0.02 decibels down. Sounds like nothing, right? Like, but you can totally hear it. You know what I mean? Especially in a poor DA. You know what I mean? Like clock radio stuff, you can totally. That's where you hear that 0.02 decibel difference. And then it prints. I'll print it all here in Pro Tools. It'll be one big track. It's a 24-bit, you know, file, 44.1, and then I'll keep that as like the master, and then I'll export it and dither it when I do the export. So the actual print happens at 24-bit, which is a little, for certain mastering engineers, they might think that's, you know, a little unconventional. I just prefer to have that really nice 24-bit version. Dithering to me is like, as long as you're using a really nice DAW, you know, the dither, as long as you're not changing the sample rate, going to 24 to 16-bit is like, you know, piece of cake.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, so it all comes back to the Symphony, and we're monitoring it through the Symphony I/O, so it goes, you know, the EQs all happen, then it goes out. It's the Vitas EQ first, then the Fatso SSL is last on the chain. This is the FXG 384, which is the older model. It's called the gray face. And added this back into the Symphony, and then it gets through the limiter, and that's it. It's just so transparent. I mean, at this point, I don't even think about it. You know what I mean? I just know that it's working, and I know that I can depend on it, and that to me is like the most important thing.